there's a lot of question marks on this defensive line between bringing back Davenport, between Alim being hurt, between losing Kaminsky, between waiving Z. Everyone's wondering what we're doing in the draft, and now the onus is placed a little bit more on defensive line by losing a guy who may not be the captain of that defense, but he's out there as a leader in that defense.
I'm glad you brought that up. Excuse me, Pete. Put that back up there for me.
Sure, my friend. Hang on, buddy.
From Dave Burkett. Actually, Brad Holmes as well as Dan Campbell talked about this at the NFL coaches meeting.
Let me zoom it in for you,
We don't
buddy.
have that yet, and I don't think that audio is out. Detroit Lions coach Dan Campbell said Alim McNeill probably will miss the early part of the 2025 season, while Brad Holmes is very confident Aiden Hutchinson will return to form, and that's at the beginning of the season. So just to break it down, Alim McNeill was breaking out of his shell this year. He was showing why they extended him to the tune of $94 million, but he got injured late in the year. And when you have injuries late in the year, it sucks in the beginning of the season upcoming, and he's heavier. This is another thing that they've talked about. When you're a heavier player, ACLs, it's different. The recovery process is different. When you trust your knee again, it's going to be different. So don't look for Alim McNeill before October. Like, don't look for him before October. You shouldn't want to see him for October, being honest. You wanted Alim McNeill for the playoffs. Like, this is still very much the Super Bowl run. 2025, we assume that we hope that we're making it to the Super Bowl. Well, you're going to lead Alim McNeill in the middle next to DJ Reader. Him being healthy will be the most important part of this. So I don't want to see him in September. I really don't want to see him in October. I don't want to see him realistically maybe until November, December.
I'm going to change that word from hope to expectations.
Okay, there it is.
Because expectations were high in 2024. Expectations for me and everybody else in this city should be even higher. For me, I wasn't thinking that we'd get Alim back until November. So if we were able to get him in October, it'd be great. But we just mentioned the issues on the defensive line. There are a lot of question marks right now. This could be a good thing for them. If they can get some people and get them some experience through those first 2 months of the season, when you get Alim back, you should be deeper and more experience over the entirety of the defensive line. But Alim, after you extend him and you lose him, it's a major, major blow. Like you said, the end of the season. If we can have him back for November, I don't need him back in October, Bray. I just want him back for November because, as you said, hit the nail on the head. That's a guy that makes all the difference come playoff time.
Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes both talked about the D-line. They said, we like our D-line. We have one of the top 5 pass rushers in the game. And they said, would you disagree that Aiden Hutchinson's a top 5 pass rusher? And I don't think we can disagree.
Nope.
He was on his way to an unbelievable breakout season last year until he had that freak injury against the Cowboys. They also said, we're not done with the D-line. Now, some people think it's a slam dunk that they're going to draft a defensive lineman, defensive end, coming up in the draft, about 20 some odd days away now, right?
Close.
The draft's like 3 weeks away almost.
Right.
Amazing. So a lot of people think they're going to lock in on that defensive end. I don't know. I think maybe they still have a trick up their sleeve, and they're talking to a team, perhaps a couple of teams, about bringing another guy in here that they know they could depend on. I say stay tuned. I say we got no choice but to believe in these guys, right?
Yeah.
He says, I know a lot of people were disappointed with free agency. He knows that. Lion fans want to see a splash. So do we. And it didn't happen. But maybe that's because they just wanted to sign their own guys. Brad Holmes went on to say, hey, we spent more money than we brought in more people than I even thought we were going to bring in during the free agent period, meaning their own guys. But they were able to keep more than they were able to lose. So that's a team that won 15 games last year. So we can't forget that.
No, it's definitely a team that won 15 games last year. Now, is Aiden the top 5 defensive end in the league right now? Sure. You want to say it? Fine. You know, I mean, it's still the uncertainty right now. And when you look at this defensive line, and that's all we've been talking about, because I've gotten to the point where, you know, Brad Holmes believes in the players they brought in, so I believe in that aspect of it, but they're coming off injuries, some major injuries. This first part of the year is going to be very interesting to see what it looks like. What does Lopez look like in the middle? Because he's going to have to play right away. That he and DJ Reader will be right next to each other. And I hear Aiden Hudson, yeah, he's coming back. He's going to be right, and he's going to be ready. The bone will be right, pause. Like, the body will be right. The mental, that's the aspect we're trying to decide. So him getting back into it. Davenport, the thing was, if Davenport plays, he'll be fine. Well, game 2 last year, Davenport's out. So it's more so the unknown that you fear with the defensive line. If everything goes well, this should be a very good defensive line. And if Aiden takes that step that he was going to take last year, this should be a great defensive line. If. That's the word that keeps bothering me, just if.
Let me ask you to define great, because I don't think anybody will argue that Aiden Hutchinson is a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL.
He's
Is
6,
this a top 10 defensive line? Because I'm not sure that it's a top 15.
Aiden's 6, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, he's 6. Okay. Well, we won't battle that one too much. But as this defensive line stands, without a draft pick added to it in the first round, without Alim McNeill for the first 2 months, would you consider this a top 12 defensive line in the NFL?
No.
Me neither.
No.
So I'm a little worried about their confidence in this line. You bring in a new guy. You've got a reader who seems to not be able to stay healthy. Davenport, who can't stay healthy at all, and half the season without Alim. There are major questions on the defensive line right now. And to your point, Maz.
But when I said that, it was, we're good. We trust Brad.
Oh, no, I mean, yes. I mean, we do trust Brad.
Me and Matt said that it was, we trust Brad. We're all good. Don't worry about that. Davenport will be fine. He's great. Trusting what Brad Holmes says. We don't need this guy. We don't need that guy. Hell, we can even go offensive line in the first round. Best available player. That's what somebody that said that he said, not you. So now all of a sudden this defensive line.
Well,
I'm not talking stuff.
No,
I'm just glad you're here.
But
because this is where me and Mass have been for the last 3 years.
Well, and if you look at this team on paper,
Yeah.
the defensive line is concerning, period. Your offense is fine. Your secondary is looking improved, if anything. And your linebacker core is coming back. To your point about them having a trick up their sleeve, listen, I've said it a few times. These guys, they have like a top 18 list, period. These are the can't-miss prospects in their eyes. They'll move up to get one, or if a Brian Branch slips, they'll take it. But it doesn't matter to them what position that guy has. If there's a great offensive lineman sitting at 28, they're going to take him. And it still will just leave us with more questions about this defensive line. But I got to say, man, like this defensive line in the first month, if they don't make any more moves, it's going to put the onus on this very, very young secondary to allow the defense to keep the Detroit Lions in games in 2025.
Let's put a pause on this conversation, but you're absolutely right about that secondary. I do want to get into that. Also, the other side of the ball. Somebody's up that might get an extension this offseason. Maybe not. Brad Holmes talking about number 9 for the Detroit Lions.
Question is, Jameson, because he had the suspensions,
Yep.
is he at that level that you're willing to do an extension with him? Does he have more to prove? How does he fit into that long term?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're still taking it, as it goes. Look, his 5th-year option's coming. It's looking likely that we'll go ahead and just pick that up. But in terms of extension, again, there's a lot of extensions that are hopefully coming, but it's just one that you just don't know what's going to happen from a financial standpoint, because a wide receiver, it's expensive. It's very expensive. So
First and foremost, I know I was the only one. I could not pay attention for the sake of all these exotic birds to go right.
Why can't they? It's a resort. Could they have anywhere inside they could have done?
No wonder they spend $3,000 a night at this place.
Right.
They got the wild birds all flown in there.
They definitely could have done it inside, but I think part of the ambiance is doing outside with the plants and the trees.
Yes.
I just thought we had to make mention of that.
Let me cut
That's
through
the
the
third
chase.
time I've watched that, and I have no idea what he said.
Let me cut through the chase on what he said.
Please.
Go, man.
Next year, not this year, but next year will be the 5th-year option for Jameson Williams. And what Brad Holmes said, essentially, is right now we're looking to possibly pick that up. Now, someone threw in, extension in there, and he just kind of blew that right off. Mm-hmm. And he basically said, yes, we're leaning towards 5th-year extension. We're going to see how, the player is really good. He's got a lot of talent. What he means is stay out of trouble, J-Mo.
Exactly.
Don't be a fool. Just be the great player that you could be. If you do that, you will get your extension. Yesterday we talked about players before their extension and then players after extension. Now, we already know what the Giants did with the Lions' old wide receiver. And refresh my memory on his name.
Galladay?
Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay, prior to getting that big contract, was a guy that played his you-know-what off, was really good. We wanted to keep him here. But the Giants went out and spent all that money on him. And what happened to him? I think he caught 3 passes in 3 years, and he's out of the NFL. This Jameson Williams, I'm telling you, they don't trust him 100%. From everything I've heard in the 3 years that he's been here, he's got a lot of talent. Of course, they drafted him when he was injured. They got him through the injury. And then you saw what he can do last year. The guy is a game breaker. There's no question about it. But he's also been suspended twice, possibly could have been suspended for a third time with the gun charge in Detroit.
Yeah.
That one got away. And it wasn't even his, but it was his brother's, whatever it is. He just got to learn to just stay straight and just be the guy that the Lions drafted when they moved up to get him in that draft just a few years ago.
This means that the Lions are going to pay Kirby Joseph, and they're going to save this season to see what, like you said, Matt, see what Jameson's going to be, and they're going to pay Aiden and J-Mo next year. Here's the problem with that, okay? Here's the problem with that. Did some research. Did some notes, as they say. J-Mo's the number 2. Amon-Ra St. Brown is your number 1, correct? Brandon Ayuk was the number 2 when he got paid because Debo was the number 1.
Yep.
These are his seasons: 748, 826, 1,015, 1,342. He got $30 million. T. Higgins, 900, 1,000, and then another 900, $28 million. Jalen Waddle, he's another number 2, 1,000, 1,300, 1,000, $28 million. You see where I'm going with this? Devontae Smith, the Eagles got ahead of the curve. They paid him earlier because they knew what the going rate was for a number 2 receiver, especially one of his caliber. I'm just saying, if you wait till the end, J-Mo had 1,000 and only played 15 games last year. In a lot of the games, he's just your decoy. If J-Mo plays 17 games and he locks in, like Brad Holmes wants him to do, like we all want him to do, J-Mo's not a $22 million receiver next year. J-Mo's not a $23 million receiver next year. Not a 25, not a 28. J-Mo's floating in the 30s.
Wow.
J-Mo's floating in the 30s because then it'd be his 4th year. And let's just say 1,400. Let's say 12 touchdowns.
Sure.
You know he doesn't need that many catches to get 1,000 anyway because of the speed and the burners. I'm just saying, if you don't do it this year where you can maybe do it for 22, 21, based off of the things that have happened, maybe even cheaper, based off of the things that have happened to him, you run the risk of either having to let him go or have to pay him way more than not way more, but closing in on number 14's price range.
You know,
I know money goes up and all that other stuff, but
I love J-Mo. I love how much he's embraced this city. I love what he can do with the ball in his hands. 2 years ago, this offense was pretty damn good without him. Pretty damn good. 12 wins, won the division. Last year, obviously, he made a big